Okay, so for this problem here, this is 1.5 for integrated 2. For this problem, what we're doing is we're trying to find the domain and the range of this function that they gave us, right? And it says use interval notation where appropriate. So the domain, I want you to think about, and I'll write notes over here for you. That's not how you spell domain. Domain. So domain. So I'll put this in my famous fonts because that way it'll be easier for you to find on my paper. And then make it bigger so you can actually see it. And then we'll highlight it so you can find it quick. Okay, so for domain, this is all of the possible X values. So when you're looking for the domain, you're looking for, look from left to right. Okay, so you're looking from left to right at which values are included on the given graph. Okay, so this is actually us looking at a graph. If we're looking at a graph, it's going to be a different thing than if you would actually look at a table, if you were looking at a function, if you were looking at a description. But because I'm looking at a graph right here, and we all know how to get a graph, I'm sorry, we all know how to graph a function that's given in terms of its equation representation. So here, if I look from left to right, I don't care about from up to down yet, because that's different. That's going to be the range. From left to right, what's the leftmost point that you see that it's being included? The leftmost point is -1, and the rightmost point is 3. So here I would say, I would use a square bracket, and I would say -1, 3. So they asked specifically here for interval notation. This in words, actually, let me go here. This in words looks like this. This in words, normal people words says, oh, I'll put it up here then. Oops, let me put this up here. In normal people words, this says from, and then and including -1 to 3, from and including -1 to 3, including. So the reason why I'm writing including is because you see these dots, they're solid dots. So if you were to take it back to like, and I can't write it here. I wonder if I can. Oh, let's try. So if I was going to use like less than or equal to, so let me try to write it here and see if OneNote will let me translate this into the way I want it to be translated. Hold on, let's see, insert math. It did. It's so fancy. Okay, so it says from X is less than or equal to 3, equal to, because it's a solid dot, greater than or equal to -1. So this is interval notation. See how short and sweet it is? You just have to remember that brackets means included, equal to, and parentheses means not included. Okay, so that's the domain. So take a second and just, I'm going to pause really quick and just do the domain of this number 14 so we can practice domain and domain, and then we'll move on to range and range. Okay, so for number 14, this one's a little bit not as obvious, because here I had like beginning point, I had an end point, so I had a definite like -1 to 3, done, right? But here it looks like it's almost like they took a picture, a zoomed in picture of a function, and like I don't know how far it goes out, right? And so one of the things that you'll learn is, or what maybe something that you didn't learn from last year, is that when you see the function continuing and it's almost like it's going outside the window, you could then assume that whatever it's doing, it's going to continue like outside that window. So it's not going to do anything like, look here, I'm going this way. And then all of a sudden I'll go like, whoop, dee whoop, dee woo, and then like drop down and like dot, 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 and, you know, vertical line this and, you know, empty part here. It's going to continue in this fashion. So this trend here that it's already established, boom, it's going to continue. Okay. Same thing goes over here, because wherever it exits out of the window, you could then assume that that's what it's going to continue. Does that make sense? So it's almost like I only gave you this much of the graph. You could then assume that that's how it continues all the way through. Okay. So with that being said, you'd say, okay, I know how to do the domain. You said to look from left to right and which values are included. So the leftmost value is, well, it looks like it's -2, but you just said that it'll continue all the way through. So that must mean that it's going to go to -infinity. And whenever we use -infinity, we always use parentheses. Okay, we use parentheses. Now, the reason why we use parentheses is because, I don't know if OneNote will let me do this. Hold on, let me see. The reason why you always use parentheses with -infinity is because if you think about it, -infinity is not an actual number. So I can't like draw a closed dot at -infinity, right? So that's when I would use this square bracket, is when I can draw a closed dot. I can't draw a closed dot at -infinity. So therefore I will use a parenthesis. What a parenthesis means is it's everybody up until that part, right? This would be an open circle kind of thing. It would be a less than, not a less than or equal to, right? Let me scooch this over here so you guys can see that. I think that's good. Okay, so this one is going to go to -infinity. And then if I look on the right side, well, Ms. Johnson, it continues. So yeah, so this is going to be to infinity. And so, Ms. Johnson, do I have to put positive infinity? No, just like you don't have to put +4 when you write the number 4, you don't have to do that. So let me see if OneNote will convert that for me. Oh, it won't. Can you imagine that that's the infinity symbol? I'll draw it above here, but I don't know how quickly it'll update, because I don't know. Okay, so it's from -infinity to infinity. Okay, and that's what our domain is. Okay, for this function here. Okay, so things that you should know when I should use square brackets. You should know when I use parentheses. For domain, we're looking from left to right. Okay, as opposed to range. Now I'm going to put this in a different color just so, I don't know, your brain separates those two thoughts. Okay, so range, similarly, it's all of the possible, no, not all of the outputs, all of the outputs. Okay, all of the outputs. Okay, I'm not going to put the word possible because it's a little bit differently. There you go. There's -infinity. He showed up finally. So I will write this like this. Let me just fix a little bit here. And I'll move this guy over here. Okay, so it's all of the outputs. And so here, instead of looking from left to right, because we're looking for actually all of the Y's, let's put that Y's, and then we'll put outputs. And instead of looking from left to right, because we're looking at the Y's, Y direction is up and down, right? So I'm going to look from bottom to top, which, look from bottom to top at which values are included on the graph. So hopefully you're seeing the similarity, but the differences between domain and range, right? So here, you want me to look from the bottom to the top. What's the lowest value you see? The lowest value I see is -1. -1. Oh, did I do this wrong? Dang it, Ms. Johnson. Sorry, the X value for this one is 1. I don't know why I keep messing up, but that's like the third mess up I've made. That's gross. All right, that's okay. We all mess up. So this is -1 to 1. My bad. This is supposed to be the X values. So from -1 to 1. And then so that other one was going to be my range, which is -1 all the way to 3. square brackets, square brackets. All right, so my apologies yet again of doing it wrong. Okay, so from -1 to 3. So from -1 all the way to 3, from bottom to top. There you go. And Ms. Johnson. Yeah, that makes more sense now because this is 1,3, 1,3, -1, -1, okay. Okay, so make sure you're checking your answers just like I did, because that didn't make sense how that worked. So in terms of range, Ms. Johnson, wouldn't that be the exact same? Yes, the exact same. Well, now why would this be exact same? This would be the exact same, and I don't know if I can copy this. Oh, I can. So that would be the exact same, simply because if you look from the bottom to the top, but wait a second, Ms. Johnson, that's not right, because the lowest possible value is not -infinity. Okay, so what should I write instead? What should I fix that -infinity instead? What's the lowest possible value? Okay, so I think that the lowest possible y value for this one is -1. So I'm going to write a -1 there. Oops. Okay. And then the highest possible value, but Ms. Johnson, it stops at the edge of the picture. So then you can assume that it continues in that same fashion. That's where my infinity comes from. Does that make sense? Very good. Now, Ms. Johnson, should that parenthesis be a parenthesis or should it be a square bracket? Should that parenthesis be a parenthesis or a square bracket? Well, according to this, it should be a square bracket because it is included. So let's write a small little note here. Square bracket. That doesn't look like a bracket. Because closed circle. So right there. So we get a closed circle means a square bracket. Okay, give me a second. Let it update really quick. I see your question in the chat. Give me a second. So let's check if this is right. So domain for this one goes from -infinity, yes, all the way to the right. And then it looks like it stops here. But then because it continues outside of this graph, you can assume that it's just going to grow and grow and grow. So you notice here, it's going to include all those values of x to the right. So that one's check. This one says, what does this square bracket mean again? Square bracket because closed circle. Oh, this is that business, way back in, I don't know, 6th grade maybe, that you had closed circle versus open circle. You had equal to versus not equal to. So this right here is this, right? Now I can't write the numbers in this symbol here. So if I was going to write this in English here, it would look something like this. X is greater than or equal to -1. You would not put an infinity symbol right here. Okay, you don't put an infinity symbol in a statement like this. You just say X is greater than or equal to -1. I mean, oops, sorry, Y. Y is greater than -1. And why is it Y, Ms. Johnson? Because we're talking about range. We're talking about range. Okay, so review really quick. You should know what square bracket means. Okay, if you don't know, square bracket means closed circle. Square bracket is the same thing as less than or equal to the equal to part. You should know parentheses always belongs with -infinity or positive infinity, right? And then the last thing is knowing the difference between domain and range. Domain means X values look from left to right. Range means look from bottom to top. And then make sure that you get your numbers right here because I flip-flop those and I flip-flop X and Y as well. If you flip-flop these numbers, I still see your understanding. If you flip-flop this and put an X here, I still see your understanding. But you're just losing like a point, maybe even a half a point or something like that. Okay.